Good morning, everybody. I'd just like to thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy day to join this webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about migrating from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, why you should make the move, some struggles you may come about during that move, and some benefits and pros and cons, and just comparing the two. I did want to put out that we shared in the chat, QuickBooks Online has a couple different test drives is what they call them. One for their just QuickBooks Online and one for their QuickBooks Online Advanced, which has a little more features. You're welcome to click on those and you can go in there, enter transactions, do whatever you want, play around in there. And then when you close the browser, nothing saves. So I did share that in the chat. Also, these slides will be available or will be sent out to everybody that attended at the end of this webinar. And a recording of this webinar will be available on our LUTS website. So this is making the move, migrating QuickBooks from desktop to online. Too far there. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Michael Perry. I'm a director in the Client Advisory Service Department. I have been with LUTS since 2003. And I worked at a smaller accounting firm in Kearney while I was in college for 3 years prior to that. So I've been working with QuickBooks since about 2000. So been a long time working with desktop, the early version of QuickBooks Online, which was awful, and then the revamp of the QuickBooks Online that we know today. Here's a little bit of the agenda here. Today we're going to talk about QuickBooks Desktop versus Online. Some of the differences, why businesses are making the switch, the benefits of a cloud-based solution, some challenges and solutions, best practices for a smooth transition, tips to optimize your QuickBooks Online. Those are the main items that we'll touch on. A little bit about LUTS. It's going to go here. Second here. You know why this is. Okay, well, I don't know why it's not populating here, but LUTS is a business solutions firm. We have a tax audit, client advisory services, M&A, business valuation, financial, tech, talent division. And we strive to be a business partner with you guys. Just a little bit about LUTS there before we go on further into the webinar here. So, is there a chat? Here's the LUTS network. This is all the stuff I just talked about. We have everything that LUTS has under our umbrella of services that we offer. Oh. All right, so let's get into why you guys are all here. QuickBooks Desktop, and we'll address the elephant in the room. Is QuickBooks Desktop going away? When is it going away? What's the phase out look like? So just to give you a little bit of background, in 2021, QuickBooks stopped selling a standalone version of their QuickBooks Desktop software. So prior to 2021, you could buy a desktop version of QuickBooks. You could work on it. They'd support it for 3 years, and then you'd have to upgrade to a new version if you still needed their connected services such as payroll, online banking, live support, security updates, things like that. In 2021, they went to a subscription-only platform. So basically what that did is you now had to pay an annual fee to have the QuickBooks Desktop software. That was the first step in them phasing out QuickBooks Desktop. They started at that point, they were really pouring money into the QuickBooks Online, and really that's where all their research and development was going, and they weren't really making very many changes to QuickBooks Desktop. Fast forward to, July 31st of 2024, they stopped selling the subscriptions of the Pro and Premier, and now that's on their same 3-year sunset where they're going to stop supporting the Pro and Premier versions at the end of May of 2027. So what that means is at the end of May of 2027, no connected services like payroll, online banking, live support, or security updates. None of that stuff will work anymore. There won't be, basically, you'll be on a software that's no longer supported. And you'll have two options at that point, or preferably before that point, and that would be either to move to a version of QuickBooks Online or the enterprise version. QuickBooks Enterprise, the desktop enterprise version, there's currently no end date set to terminate support for that. But in some of the conferences I've been to, essentially what they're telling us is that they're not changing the platform. The QuickBooks Desktop version that you guys see now was the backbone of it was built in 2013. And so it's now 13 years old, and they're not revamping the code that it's written on. So basically, if Windows comes out with a version that QuickBooks doesn't support it on, then you're gonna have to move to the cloud. Now, we will talk about why. So this is the primary reason what people are worried about is like, hey, how much longer do I have before I have to make a switch? So we're going to, hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll be able to see the benefits to moving to QuickBooks Online and make this a little less scary and more so of, why you should be making the move sooner rather than later. So here's a little bit, QuickBooks Desktop versus QuickBooks Online. Here's some differences that I wanted to point out. So QuickBooks Desktop, you can only access it on computers that have the software installed. So if you have 5 people that need to access QuickBooks Desktop, you would have to have, each of those people would have to have QuickBooks Desktop installed on their computers, would have to do the maintenance releases on those computers, upgrade when necessary, and so forth. Where QuickBooks Online, you can access it anywhere you have an internet connection and on mobile devices via the app. So connectivity, you don't need to be tied to an office or utilize some sort of VPN into your office computer. You can access it anywhere you have an internet connection. As for the structure as to how it's priced, QuickBooks Desktop, you pay a subscription based on the number of users, but you can have as many data files as you want. So if you have 5 people that need to use QuickBooks Desktop, you would have a 5-user license of QuickBooks Desktop, and those 5 people would have it. That's what you would be paying for, is per user a license. Where on QuickBooks Online, each subscription is based on a single data file. So if you have multiple data files, you need multiple subscriptions of QuickBooks Online. Now you may need different versions of QuickBooks Online. Currently, there's QuickBooks Online Simple Start, which is 1 user, and then it goes QuickBooks Online Essentials, which gives you 3 users, QuickBooks Plus, which gives you 5, and then QuickBooks Advanced, which you can have up to 25 users. Now, that's not the only determination as to which version you need to be on. There's different features that unlock at each of those levels. There's also a version of QuickBooks Online called QuickBooks Online Ledger, but that's only available through accounting firms, and that's really a dumbed down version. We see people go to that if they have, let's say, they have an operating entity, and then they also have an entity that owns the building that the operating entity rents. So in that situation, that operating entity may be on like a QuickBooks Online Plus or a QuickBooks Online Advanced, and we can then put the building entity on a QuickBooks Online Ledger account, which is a lot cheaper cost because all they're really doing is entering data, checks, deposits after the fact. Again, you can see on the screen here, there's security updates that need to be downloaded and installed on each of those computers that have it installed on desktop. The one plus side on QuickBooks Desktop is they do have a more robust inventory tracking with QuickBooks Enterprise and advanced inventory, including inventory build assemblies. So if you're a manufacturing client, making the move to QuickBooks Online is probably going to involve utilizing a third-party software to track your inventory. That being said, one of the big benefits of QuickBooks Online is the fact that there are over 800 third-party software integrations that plug into QuickBooks Online seamlessly that allow you to better control some of the things like inventory or job costing or things like that. The other thing is with QuickBooks Online, all the updates happen automatically. You always have the latest, the newest, best features and security. There's the bank feeds. If you've ever used the bank feeds in desktop, the bank feeds in QuickBooks Online is like night and day. It's so much more streamlined. You can it automatically downloads all your transactions. There's no pushing or pulling the data from the bank. It's just you log in and yesterday's transactions are sitting in the bank feed center for you to go in and either match up or add from that bank feed center. Also, bank rules are the bank rules were available in desktop, but you had to initiate those bank rules. Where in QuickBooks Online, if you code something to the same, if it sees patterns, if you code something to the same account more than twice, it's going to be like, hey, do you want to set up a rule for this where we'll just automatically code it here for you? So there's a lot more, like I said, for the last, 7+ years, QuickBooks has been pouring their research and development all into QuickBooks Online and nothing really into the desktop version. So you're getting all the bells and whistles. Everything that on QuickBooks Online is going to be, they've added the AI agent in chats where you can go in there and just tell it what you're trying to do in QuickBooks or a report that you're trying to want, and it'll pull that up and show you exactly what where to find it, and we'll actually create the report for you and give you a link to it. So there's really a lot of things that you can utilize inside QuickBooks Online to help build efficiencies and also to just to manage your company better, to be more efficient, to have your finger more on the pulse and be more real time. Where with QuickBooks Desktop, a lot of our clients were looking at things after, month end. You do a month end close, and then you're looking at the financials maybe at the mid to end of the month following. And by doing that, you're really you're being reactive instead of proactive. Where with QuickBooks Online and the efficiencies that you can build, you can really get to look at what in real time where your business is standing. Why businesses move from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, besides the fact that QuickBooks is kind of forcing them at some point. Really, a lot of these companies that have already moved to QuickBooks Online, it was more strategic for them and to be, in an environment that they can grow their business in a more efficient way, to be more, less time entering transactions and doing the actual bookkeeping work and more time being able to digest the information and grow their business. Into, like I said before, into its product direction, they've been investing in their cloud-based system pretty much solely for the last 5, 6, 7 years. Post-COVID in today's reality, workers are there's a lot more remote workers, and so having remote workers and people liked working from home and having the ability for them to easily work from home and log into the QuickBooks Online file without having to deal with the slowness of a remote session to a computer or whatever you would have to do to get QuickBooks Desktop to work in a remote situation like that is beneficial to them. Multi-locations, you no longer have to worry about a server that all your locations have access to. There's a lot of benefits to cloud-based systems that you're not going to get in a desktop-based software. And as technology evolves, the software is going to evolve with you, and you're going to, like like I mentioned with the AI, and like essentially QuickBooks is building essentially a chat GPT inside their QuickBooks Online software that allows you to just ask the questions and just like you're talking to a person, like, hey, ask the question in like normal English speaking. You don't have to try to figure out keywords to search or anything like that. So they've really put a lot of effort and dollars into this, the QuickBooks Online, and that's the way they're going. That's the route they're taking. They're phasing everybody out. As you've probably seen, if you're on QuickBooks Desktop, they keep raising the price of the QuickBooks Desktop. That's another way for Intuit to phase people out, make it more cost effective to go to the QuickBooks Online system. And the other thing is like there's a lot of the things in QuickBooks Online are going to be very similar to QuickBooks Desktop. I mean, it's not a completely different software. The learning curve isn't going to be dramatic. A lot of the same things that you see in QuickBooks or in Desktop, you're going to see the same in QuickBooks Online. It's just going to be getting the biggest thing I would say for most people is just getting used to it being a web-based software where you have the back button, you have it's just different than just having Windows and the desktop software where you open windows and you can click on each open window. You can get to the same point in QuickBooks Online. You just have to have different browser pages open for the different things that you want to see. So I'd say that that's probably one of the biggest hurdles for people to get over, and that's why I shared that link of the QuickBooks Online test drive, because I want to make sure that you guys have the ability to go out there and play around in it and get comfortable with it in your free time. Let's see. Benefits of migrating to a cloud-based solution. Again, we talked about this a little bit on the last slide too. The anywhere access to the data. I mean, you can have remote workers accessing it. You can be, at home and not have to. You can quickly look at it on your app or whatnot. Like just being able to have access to your financial data, no matter where you are, is huge. Like, I mean, you could, if you're on vacation and a problem arises and it's like, hey, I have to put this fire out. You don't have to, try to log in or get access to your computer at work. You can just find an internet connection or pull it up on the app on your phone, look at what you need to look at. Real-time collaboration. So the other thing is like with QuickBooks Desktop, how you would, collaborate with your accounting team or your bookkeeper or whoever, if you had a third-party bookkeeper or an outside bookkeeper, is, you'd have to either make an accountant's copy and give them an accountant's copy with a dividing date. And then those accountant's copies had their own issues because sometimes they break, and then you wouldn't be able to import the changes that the accountant made to the accountant's copy, or you'd be importing journal entries that the accountant made or manually entering them at worst case scenario. And it wasn't really a true collaboration in real time with your accountants. It was always like after the fact, where with QuickBooks Online, you can grant access to your accountant or your bookkeeper, and you can, they can collaborate with you in there. They have some tools in there where you can send, messages back and forth and, really collaborate inside QuickBooks Online with your accountant and not have to worry about, staying out of the file or, hey, I can't do anything. And because you have a accountant's copy that's outstanding, and so I need to do something for the prior period and things like that. So it does make the collaboration and the time that it takes, a lot. It reduces that time that of sending backups back and forth and things like that, and worried about version conflicts as to, oh shoot, you guys upgraded your file, your QuickBooks Desktop version when I had an accountant's copy and now it won't import in. And there's all sorts of different things with QuickBooks Desktop that were just inefficient that you don't have in in the cloud version. Automatic backups and security. Your data is automatically, in the cloud, built-in automatic backups. You don't have to worry about losing your data like you would in QuickBooks Desktop, or remembering to do backups, or I don't know how many people make backups of their QuickBooks file and just put it in the same folder that the data file is, which essentially, if you have a hard drive fail, you don't have the backups either. So, just being able to be in the cloud and that peace of mind of not having to worry about what happens if my hard drive crashes and will I lose all my data, or what if my data becomes corrupt and I can't open my file. And we've all dealt, if you've been on QuickBooks Desktop for any period of time, I'm sure you've ran into that issue where, I can't get QuickBooks to open, or something's wrong and I have to figure out either I have to call Lutz or I have to call Intuit to try to figure out how I can even get into my file. And now productivity has gone down because I've spent the whole day trying to get into this file and haven't got anything done that I need to get done. Those types of things are, don't happen when you're on a cloud-based solution. Now, yes, there are rare times when the QuickBooks Online may be down for, because of some sort of issue with whether it be, Amazon hosting, their type of thing, and they may have a small outage where you can't get on for a few minutes or something like that. But those are very few and far between, and they also are resolved relatively quickly because of the amount of people that it does affect. So QuickBooks has by far the largest amount of small to mid-sized business clients. They have branched out into more of the mid-sized clients with their Intuit Enterprise Suite offering, which is going to be more of a competitor to your Intax and your Microsoft Business Central and NetSuites of the world there, which so there is those type of companies as well, or there is that level too. So not only now has QuickBooks made it so that they can support all the small size business, they've also now moved into the higher mid-level businesses so that, if you outgrow QuickBooks Online, you don't have to make the decision like, hey, do we need to migrate to Intact or Microsoft Business Central or one of those other ones that QuickBooks now you could migrate into, or you could basically a quick migration into IES, which is Intuit Enterprise Suite, which would allow some additional features that you would see in those other softwares, like the ability to have multiple data files and reporting on multiple data files, and more collaboration between intercompany transactions, whether that be journal entries or invoicing and billing, between companies. App integration, ecosystem. There's by far way more apps that integrate with the QuickBooks Online version than there is the desktop version. So you're going to have seamless integrations with your payroll if you outsource your payroll to, say, an ADP or Augusto or some company like that, the integration can be set up seamlessly where it happens without you doing anything. We kind of talked about inventory, but you have there's like SOS and fishbowl inventory, that those types of inventory systems, you can track your inventory, and really you can take QuickBooks as your GL software, and then QuickBooks Online as your GL software, and you can basically take these third-party softwares that specialize in what your industry may need, whether that be inventory or job costing or some other niche that you can then integrate those together so that they work seamlessly, and it can really help your business to grow in that aspect beyond what QuickBooks may have to offer. It could push off your need to move to like an Internet or Intuit Enterprise Suite, which I'm going to call IES. So if you hear me say IES, it's Intuit Enterprise Suite, or like a different industry specific software. Future product enhancements and investment, we talked about that. Intuit has decided to really grow their cloud products and their existing QBOs, as well as IES. It's been out now for about a year and a half, and that's the clear roadmap of the future for Intuit. They're phasing out any desktop products and are going 100% in the cloud and online. So what is a good fit for migration to QBO? So strong fits for QBO, like we said, service-based companies, companies with light inventory or that are willing to use a third-party inventory management application, or that are currently using one of the third-party inventory management applications and it feeds into desktop. I would be surprised if any of those inventory management softwares that integrate with QuickBooks Desktop don't also integrate with QuickBooks Online. And we kind of touched on this too. Businesses seeking real-time access to their data and multi-user access to their information anywhere that they, not tied to their office. They don't have to go into their office to take a look at the financials or whatnot. Companies are already using cloud-based applications for like payroll, e-commerce, billing, those types of things. Many of those softwares are probably going to integrate directly with your QuickBooks, so it's going to reduce any duplicating of efforts, no double entry. You're not entering your information into the payroll software and then having to go in and record that information into your GL software. You can have it just integrate with that and it'll import over. Companies seeking better integration to manage their cash flow. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but like migrating away from that after the fact, like month close, and looking at how did we do the prior month? And now it's been 2 months since that month happened. So it's like, okay, we had a bad month. Well, how do we go about fixing that? Well, now you're 2 months after, you're 1 to 2 months after the fact, where being able to see it in real time and being like, see trends and QuickBooks and their AI features pointing out different things to bring to your attention, like, hey, your sales are down quite a bit from this time last month. It allows you to see problems that are arising in real time rather than looking at it after the fact and going, oh, well, shoot, our sales were down $100,000 last month. Why? Well, it's now been a month and a half down the road, and it's a lot harder for you to know what that issue was, where if you knew it in real time, hey, you don't seem to be on track for your sales right now. You're able to address those issues and rectify them in a much quicker time frame. So the ones that may not be a fit, they could be a fit, but we'd have to explore each specific use case. Is like heavy manufacturing entities, like I kind of spoke on before. If you're not using some sort of third party inventory management software, and you're just using QuickBooks Desktop for your inventory needs, and you have some heavy manufacturing where you're taking widgets and doing inventory builds and build assemblies and things like that, it's not going to work in QuickBooks Online without a third-party application. Companies requiring highly customizable and specific financial reporting, and then just companies with complex construction or project management needs. So the construction side, I will tell you, like probably 5 years ago, I was hesitant to put any of our construction clients on QuickBooks Online, just because the job costing was subpar. The reporting that you got out of QuickBooks Online wasn't as good as the reporting you got out of Desktop. But with the introduction of projects in QuickBooks Online and in QuickBooks Online Advanced, the ability to do project estimates as well as run estimates versus actual reporting and things like that, the construction companies don't. If they're operating on QuickBooks Desktop, I have no problem moving those over to QuickBooks Online now. So they've seen, QuickBooks has seen some of the weaknesses in there, and they've addressed them. One thing that I don't know that I've seen them address is the inventory aspect, and I don't know that they will, or if they're going to just rely on third-party inventory to providers to pick up the slack there. Cost comparison. Let's talk about the cost between QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. As I mentioned before, QuickBooks Desktop went to an annual subscription back in 2021. So there is no pay for it and you use it for 3 years or anything like that. So both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop are subscriptions. QuickBooks Desktop's generally an annual subscription. There are some versions of QuickBooks Enterprise that are you can pay monthly, but most of them are an annual subscription. Price increases with each user. So if you need 5 users, you're going to pay for a 5-user license, and that price is going to increase. The cost for a 1-user license is listed there. Pro Plus is about $1,150 a year. Premier Plus is about $1,600 a year, and Enterprise starts at about $1,875 per year. And then the cost of users after that will increase. It doesn't, like 2 users doesn't double that, but there's a progressive cost increase as you go to more users. Excuse me, let me grab a drink. QuickBooks Online. Oh, the other thing to mention on QuickBooks Desktop, again, I mentioned it before, but you are paying for the software subscription, and you can put as many data files as you want in that QuickBooks there. So you're paying per user, not per data file. QuickBooks Online, again, you're paying per data file. It's a monthly subscription. You can pay it annually, and usually they give you like 1 month free when you pay annually. Pricing based on tiers, not users. So again, you can have multiple users on the data file. Now each tier has its limit on users, like I mentioned before. Simple Start's only 1 user, Essentials is 3, Plus is 5, and Advanced is 25. It's easy to scale up and down between these tiers as needed too. So you can go in and you can upgrade from, let's say you're on Essentials and you have 3 users and you hire a new person and now you need 4 users. You can easily go into the QuickBooks Online software, go to your subscriptions, say upgrade to Plus, and be able to have that additional user. Or let's say, you're on Essentials and you need class tracking, because class tracking or location tracking, either one is only available in Plus. And now you've opened another office and you want to track your your sales by each office. You can then easily upgrade to Plus to get those class tracking and be able to add those classes and start utilizing the additional features on those. The same works if you need to downgrade. So let's say, hey, I needed Plus because I, had 2 office locations, but we closed 1 office location. I really don't use classes anymore. I only have, 3 users or less. I really am not using all the features of Plus. I don't need to be paying for this. You can downgrade to Essentials as well. Now the cost there, Simple Start starts at 30. These are the current retail prices for these software or for these versions. Intuit generally, they've kind of been on a trajectory of about every year there's price increases. So this is the current price level. It's $38 a month for Simple Start. Again, that's 1 user. Essentials is $75 a month, and that's 3 users. Plus is $115 per month. That's 5 users. And Advanced is $275 per month, and that's 25 users. And Let's will typically get a discount of 30%. If you go through Let's, you'll typically get 30% off for the first 12 months on those costs. So let's get into migration and what that looks like and some of the challenges and how you can overcome those. So it's kind of just over the last, and most of this became when they started really pushing IES, like the size of the data file that you were restricted to, like a year ago was like, if it was over 500,000 targets, you would have to condense your data in order to migrate those over to QuickBooks Online. That's, I think, up to maybe 4 million targets now. So they've really expanded the size of the file that you can push into the cloud now. But there's still there's a lot of different issues that can come about. So when we're at Lutz, when we decide, when a company comes to us and they're like, hey, I need to move from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. So the process usually goes, we have that conversation, we figure out, we sit down with them, we have a meeting, we're like, okay, what is it that you need? What are you using now in QuickBooks Desktop? What are your so we can determine what version of QuickBooks Online best suited for them. Then once we've determined what version of QuickBooks is best suited for them, what they use in QuickBooks now, are we migrating over payroll? Are we do we have any other third-party integrated apps that may cause an issue? I had one situation where there was she wanted to move to QuickBooks Online, but there was the third-party app she used for e-commerce didn't integrate with QuickBooks Online. So we had to pump the brakes on that, and she's got to go back to them to see, hey, how, if I want to keep using you, are you going to support QuickBooks Online, or do I need to look for a different, e-commerce platform? So there's, so then the next step, then after we determine, hey, these are what you're using, this is the version that you need to go to, then we'll get a QuickBooks backup from you guys, and we'll look at that backup, and we're gonna look at the health of the file. Like, are there any issues that we can see looking at this file that are going to present a problem in the migration process? Some of those being like inventory. Like, did you have some skeletons in your closet from inventory where you went negative quite a bit in your inventory and weren't using inventory quite the way it should be, and so there's some problems there that can cause issues during the migration to QuickBooks Online. There's then we look at timing too. What's the best timing for doing this migration? Typically, we tell people plan on being without the use of your QuickBooks file for 2 to 3 days to allow for the migration. We can generally kind of narrow that down once we get the backup and have kind of looked at things and got an idea of the size of the file as to, maybe you're only down for 1 or 2 days, but we generally tell people expect to be down 2 to 3 days. If we get you up and running on QuickBooks Online sooner than that, great, but just expect that 2 to 3 day turnaround time. So we want to, especially if payroll is involved, we'll want to make sure we work around the payroll dates so that, hey, we need to migrate over your payroll. So does it make sense to do it at a quarter in? Does it make sense, on the timing, or, when was your last payroll? Let's run your last payroll, get the file, get it done to give us the most amount of time between your payroll runs. Workflow adjustments, just having your employees adapt to the new reporting structure and the workflows inside QuickBooks Online, which this is why I tell when we have these conversations, I always give the clients that QuickBooks test drive. And I say, hey, you know what? If you're thinking about migrating to QuickBooks Online in the next, call it 30 to 120 days or whatever, go in there, get comfortable, like play around in it, get used to it. It's going to really reduce the amount of time that it's going to take you to get comfortable with QuickBooks Online, and it's going to share it with your employees. There's nothing they can do in there that's going to cause any issues. Like I said, you can enter information, data, as soon as you close out of the browser, and all of it goes away. Pre-migration data cleanup. We also tell people, when this is a perfect time to clean up that data file. So if you have a bunch of customers that you don't need anymore that are still active, let's inactivate old customers. It might make sense, even though with the target level, you don't need to condense the data. It might make sense. If you have 20 years worth of data in your QuickBooks Desktop file, do you want all 20 years of data to come over into QuickBooks Online? Or, has your business significantly changed in those 20 years? And I want to say, hey, let's condense the data. I don't need any of this stuff prior to 5 years ago. And let's condense the data, bring over the last 5 years that allows me to clean up more of my customers and just get rid of them completely instead of inactivating them. I can delete those customers. I can delete old vendors. I can delete old accounts. I can delete old items. Those types of things can just be completely deleted rather than just inactivated, which are still in there, but are unable to delete them entirely because there's transactions tied to those items or customers or vendors. Then training and support, just providing your employees with the training and ongoing support. We at Lutz here, we generally recommend if we do a conversion that we recommend that you guys have at least a hour and a half session, hour and a half to 2 hour training session that we provide to your employees. Again, it's helpful if they've went into that QuickBooks test drive and like kind of played around in it, because then they'll have more questions as to, hey, how do you do this in QuickBooks Online? I used to do this in Desktop. Because really on those trainings, we're going to show you how to do some things more efficiently than you weren't able to do in QuickBooks Desktop. But also we want to know, like, I don't want to touch base on how to do something that doesn't relate to your business. So it's going to be very, interactive in the fact that we're going to ask you, hey, what are some of the things that you do in Desktop? Let me show you how to do those in QuickBooks Online and show you what the differences are. And you know what? This may be how you did them before in Desktop, but we have tools in QuickBooks Online, and we can help you be more efficient if you do this. So like if I have clients that are like, okay, I go in, I enter this, enter the checks, write the checks, I enter all my debit card transactions, in as checks, and then I go in once a month and I do the, bank reconciliation. I'm going to be like, okay, well, let's go in and connect your bank account into the bank feeds so that it pulls that data down automatically every day. So all your checks that you can still enter bills, write bills, print checks, all that stuff, and it'll automatically match those up because it'll see them already in QuickBooks. But those debit card transactions, those can come over and we can set up rules. So you have a debit card transaction for, Casey's, and that always goes to auto expense. Well, let's tell we'll set up a bank feed that'll say, hey, if this comes through and it's from Casey's, automatically code it to auto expense to take some of that, the data entry portion off of your plates, to give you more time to really dive into like the business and work on your business instead of in your business. So that's some of the things that we'll show you in that training and that support. Looks like we have a polling question now, so we'll go ahead and pull this up for anybody that needs CP credit. Any other questions? Okay. All right, we're back after that polling question, and let's get the slides back up here. Bear with us. Okay, so here's some best practices for a smooth transition migration from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. Pre-conversion cleanup, like I mentioned before, cleaning up the desktop file, making sure all your bank accounts, credit card accounts are all reconciled and current, fixing any errors, running verified data, and if there's any errors that come from the verified data, rebuilding those errors, and then removing any inactive lists or any like items, customers, vendors, employees, those types of things before the conversion. Yeah, I already mentioned running the verify and rebuild, determining if a condensed data is necessary or makes sense. Again, we talked about that already. You may not want the 20 years worth of data, so condensing the data might be an item that might be something that you want to do. Choosing the conversion date, I kind of went over this already. Selecting a conversion date as to does it make sense to be at a quarter end for payroll, and determining when you can be without access for 2 to 3 days, and then creating the backup of the desktop file to preserve your historical data and enable recovery if needed. So that's especially needed if you decide to condense your data. So if you're going to go in and condense the data and say, hey, you know what, I only want the last 5 years worth of data, you want to make sure that you create a backup, complete backup of the file, which it'll force you to do before you do the condensing of the data, and keep that in a safe place so that if you ever need to go back and see those transactional transactions from 20 years ago, you would have that ability to do so. And then post-migration review, reviewing key reports like balance sheet, profit and loss, just to make sure that the accuracy of the data after the migration, make sure everything in QuickBooks Desktop came over to QuickBooks Online, and that all your balances appear accurate. We're kind of running a little short on time here, so if I go through these a little fast, I apologize. We'll open it up for questions here in a little bit. Tips to optimize QuickBooks Online after migration. Again, we touched on a lot of these, but automating transaction fees, connecting your bank and credit card fees to automatically import your transactions, and setting up bank rules to automatically categorize these and ensure consistency across your financial records. That's the other thing on the bank rules, is not only does it help reduce your data entry, but it also helps with consistency across financial records. So like you might forget where you normally coded something, and it's like this will allow you to have consistency where it's always going to code it in the place that it should be. Customizing some dashboards and reports, so you can really tailor your dashboards inside QuickBooks Online to what your role is in the business, or what you want to see in the business metrics that make sense for you, so that you can quickly log into QuickBooks Online and look at a few dashboards and be like, oh, you know what, we need to address this, and help you make informed business decisions. And integrate third-party apps. We talked about this as well. Enhancing functionality by connecting your third-party apps for payroll, time tracking, whatnot. So, reducing that double entry of data, connecting your actual payroll, connecting ADP, maybe use ADP for payroll, connecting that to QuickBooks Online so that it automatically feeds into your QuickBooks Online and you don't have to re-enter a journal entry to get it in the GL or whatnot. So we are about 10 minutes. I wanted to leave it open for some questions and stuff, or anything that you guys had. So we'll go ahead and check out the questions here to see if there's any questions. Don't be shy. I see a lot of questions about the link. If you guys are having a hard time finding the links to the QuickBooks Online test drive, if you just Google QBO test drive, the first thing that pops up is going to be the link that will have an article from Intuit that'll have those links as well. So if you have multiple, okay, here's the first question. If you have multiple companies, do you have to have a subscription for each one? So generally speaking, what we tell people is if you have for each company that has its own EIN, you're going to want to have a separate subscription for it. So you might think if you have if you had multiple companies, but they all file on the same EIN and it's the same tax return, like they roll up into one tax return, there is a possibility that you could get by with just doing location and or class tracking, but for the most part, yes, you have to have a subscription for each company file that you're using. Another question is, are you able to share the QuickBooks? Okay, yeah, so we shared the QuickBooks test drive file links again. Again, if you can't find, if you're not seeing those for whatever reason in the chat, basically just go out and Google QBO test drive. There's a question here that says, any idea when Enterprise will be available online? So Enterprise Online, the Enterprise version of QuickBooks Online is their Intuit Enterprise Suite that I talked about briefly about if maybe you joined late, but Intuit Enterprise Suite is now available, but it's going to be a higher level than Enterprise. So if I'm looking at it apples to apples, QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise, people are gonna, if you're on QuickBooks Enterprise right now, you're gonna fall into two groups. Either you're going to be on QuickBooks Online Advanced, which maybe you were on Enterprise because you needed, more than 5 users, or maybe you were on Enterprise because you had some, additional reporting items that you needed in Enterprise. Those people would be most likely pushed to QuickBooks Online Advanced. Now, there's the other level of companies like, hey, I was on Enterprise because I had 3 different data files and I used Enterprise for their combining of reports feature. So those types of people, Intuit Enterprise Suite would be the version that you would move to, and that's going to be a higher level of Enterprise. Like I said, of QuickBooks, it's going to be more comparable to your Intact or your NetSuite or your Microsoft Business Essentials. So essentially, there is QuickBooks Enterprise already online with that. Will the Enterprise Suite support job costing? Absolutely. So job costing is available in QuickBooks Online Plus through QuickBooks Intuit Enterprise Suite IES. So just depends on what your job costing needs are. I will say at the plus level, if all you are really needing for job costing is a profit and loss by job, and you don't really need the ability to see estimates versus actual or things like that, you could probably get away with QuickBooks Online Plus. If you're needing more robust, like estimates versus actual and the ability to do job estimating and things like, like basically profitability by job report, then you'd want to go to advanced, and then the IES is going to be the highest level, and in that version, you would most likely go there if you have multi companies or the need for the IES is relatively new, but it's very powerful, and there's a lot more features that are available in IES. It's also going to come with a lot higher price. We didn't touch base on that on the price of IES, but our pricing through LUTs for the first 2 files is $715 a month. So that gives you an idea of how much more Intuit Enterprise Suite is going to run. And it's not really in the same realm as QuickBooks Online or even the desktop enterprise. It's more robust than those. Does Enterprise Suite support payroll? Yes. So all of the versions of QuickBooks Online, you are able to use the QuickBooks Online payroll subscription. Now, the payroll is going to be its own subscription with its own costs, and there's 3 different levels to payroll. There's QuickBooks, there's core payroll, premium payroll, and elite payroll. And those, based on your needs, there'll be 3 different. You'd fall into one of those 3 users or versions of payroll. So you wouldn't have to have third-party software on any of the versions of QuickBooks Online. Also, with QuickBooks Online, if you're coming from desktop, your version of QuickBooks Desktop that you're used to, you'd go in there, you can run your payroll, you still have to make your payroll tax payments, you still have to file your returns, you can do those inside QuickBooks Desktop, but you have to be the one to push the button and to force the filing and things like that. You can set it up to file electronically, but you have to do it inside QuickBooks Desktop. Where with QuickBooks Online, it's more like a third-party payroll where you go in, you still control the hours and the payroll and running the payroll, but once you run that payroll, QuickBooks then will pull the money out for taxes. They'll pull the money out to pay your employees, provided that you set up direct deposit. And then they'll pay the taxes on your behalf. They'll file the quarterly and annual returns on your behalf. So they handle basically all the payroll aspects of it. I don't see any other questions right now. If nobody else has any questions, I just want to let everybody know on this call that, when you're moving to QuickBooks from desktop to online, or if you're thinking about it, please reach out to myself or your main contact at Lutz can get you in touch with me. We can talk through as to if it makes sense, what version makes sense, and what it looks like. And this doesn't have to be a scary process. It's really pretty painless for the most part, migrating, because you're in the same software, just a different version of that software. So it's not like you're learning to, ride a bike. It's like you'll be comfortable. It's going to take a little. I always tell people when you move to QuickBooks Online, if you don't prepare at all and you're just like, okay, I need to move to QuickBooks Online, and we do the training for a week, maybe two, you're going to probably hate me, and then after that, you're going to be like, why didn't I do this earlier? So know that first week may be a little rough. Second week, maybe it's still a little rough, but by week 3, you're probably going to be like, man, I should have done this earlier. I'm saving so much time. I have better reporting. I have better understanding of my business and how my business is doing. And so that's what I usually tell people when we're doing these migrations. But feel free to reach out. We're happy to help in any aspect of the migration. And I just encourage people to not wait until next year when they start forcing you to move over. All right, guys. Well, I still don't see any other questions, so we'll go ahead and end the webinar here, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Thanks.